How about that? Can you hear me now? Let's see which way it's gonna let me have sound here. Let me see. Yeah, I am. How about that? Oh, I don't know which one I'm coming through.
You're on that much of a delay on me. Let me go back and.
Hi, everybody. I'm waiting to see. I don't know which. I don't know which one's coming through, but we're gonna find out. Yeah, I'm doing this live, like literally live. Like, so okay. Sound number 1. Trying to figure out which one we hear me from, and I'm just gonna not thing. Oh, I see it now. I see it hit now. Okay. I'm just a crazy person where I'm like, I'm gonna figure out all of this on the moment of going live. And I'm just gonna be a real human, and we're gonna figure it out together, folks, because I wanted to do my my live chats in a different way where it was just like, I don't know, just different than the phone that I don't look. I'm usually talking to you over this, but now I'm on my camera, and so yeah, I just wanted to do it different and figure out a way to make it, I don't know, a little less stressful on me, a little easier for everybody else. Now I know it's showing the overlay to people. Let me. Oh, I see what's happening. Still playing around here, folks. I got time. I'm warming my tea up. Now you just see me. And then I can do cool things like click on, somebody's comment like this, and it says, hello from Deadwood, South Dakota. Hey, hi there. Yeah, that's really cool. So that's what I'm doing now. And I'm streaming on Facebook right now, too, because I'm just an insane person. And I'm like, let's do both at once because I had to pay money to use the streaming platform. Let's get every dime out of it. So I'm going to make some tea. So for those of you who are new here or joining me on Facebook for the first time, the way this works is usually I'm live on YouTube. Everyone on YouTube knows how this is going. But I come on here every Friday, Sunday for members, but every Friday publicly I come on and I make some tea, and then I start doing a health Q&A. Just answer questions, and this will be really cool because I'll be able to like pace myself a little bit better, and I will be able to, click on people's comments. And then it'll do like a thing where it shows you across the screen and all fancy and stuff like this. Like this one says, so glad I got here in time. The last few times I've got here right at the end. And I actually, I went really early this time. Usually I go live at noon Pacific Standard Time, but my husband and daughter have somewhere to be. So I decided I would go early. They're my moderators, of which we don't have moderators on Facebook right now. So hopefully people are, not jerks about it. But yeah. So I thought, why not throw myself into the deep end 30 minutes before I go live? This is when I set up this new program because I'm a glutton for punishment, and my brain just says, "Fuck it, we're all in. Let's do it." Yeah, thanks for asking. I did have a decent break last weekend. I don't know if it's a break because I'm self-employed, and so I just did a lot of work. But sometimes I need to just like focus on chaos to get something done, and it's kind of easier for me to do that if I'm not dumping my brain out during, Q&As and things like that. So what I don't know is... okay, let's get this going here. I've got my water heating up. Let's put some tea in this jar. who am I going to do? I'm going to do the Moonlight White one again because I just have her sitting here. This is from Yunnan Sourcing, the Moonlight White tea. I really like this one so much that I just sat it on the floor. Well, this is like my whole like tea cave, so things just kind of get stuck around. So basically the way this works for people who have never joined me before, and I don't even know, what'll be funny is I don't know if I'm live on my normal Facebook or my actual Facebook, like my big She's in the Woods page. So I'll figure it out. Maybe I'm live to just my random friends on Facebook, but it. But yeah, so I want to make this tea, and then as soon as my tea is ready, I start answering questions. I go for about half an hour or so, not including this little bit of jabber time as we settle in and let people show up and roll in and things like that. Yeah, white tea is one of my favorites. I think I like green tea as well, but there's something about, I don't know, just like how subtle white tea is, but like she's got lots of like nuanced flavors, and obviously across the board there are so many different types of white tea, and they're all from the same plant, by the way. But yeah, so let's see. Yes, see, look, she knows what's up. Assuming it's a she. Says, I'm waiting until you have your first sip of tea to ask my question, because that is how. Oh, it looks like it's from your personal Facebook page. Well, that's fine. I'll have to go in there and figure out how to set it up to not be on my personal Facebook page. She's in the Woods is how I found this one. Yeah, it must have like popped up there. I don't know. Like I said, I set this thing up 30 minutes before I went live and figured it out in the last 2 minutes. So probably next Friday, I will probably figure out how to make sure it's connected to my actual Facebook page itself instead of like my random Facebook friends list. Although that one's open and like I got like quote unquote 5,000 or 8,000 or something friends over there, but like I know like 10 of them in real life. Most of them are like family. So I'm randomly live to nobody right now there, and that's fine to me. But there's plenty of people here on YouTube that will have questions.
It's showing me that you're live on the business one.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, if you click it, it goes there. Well, that works. Husband came in and showed me that it's live on the business one. So, yeah, the next thing I think it'd be cool to figure out is if it would also go live on Instagram at the same time. And then we're not messing around. Then it's just like everywhere. But I don't know. I don't know if it could do that. It didn't really show that option. But yeah, it's been actually, well, geez, I feel bad because every time I come on, I'm like, it's been a stressful week. But it has. This fucking spring is just like chewing me up and spitting me out. It is just been one of those things, and I'm having to come to the acceptance that I'm not going to end up having much of a garden. I still have all like the perennial stuff in play, but like I just know that I'm not going to have very much of a seasonal garden because I can't. Like the things that I have to be doing right now, like in regards of like all the stupid like online work that I really hate, it's bombarded me to the point where like it is my existence. If you're like, what did you do yesterday, April? I'm like, I stared at a screen for 10 hours and thought about how this is some sort of personal soul trap. Because, it's just online complex work and things that I'm having to figure out, But yeah, so as a reminder, this little timer is almost up, and then you can start throwing questions at me. Have a first sip of tea, settle in, let people show up. What I'm also thinking is I don't really have controls over the chat here, I don't think. What is this? What happens if I can just change it. Cool. I can just change it from Restream to the YouTube to the Facebook comments. So that's handy. What I don't know is if it shows me chats or anything. I have not brushed any of my locks out. This is just under hair that I haven't let dreadlock. And you just don't see it because it's normally up, but I have it down today. But yeah, it wants to actually, there's like some fresh baby ones in here that have turned themselves into brand new dreadlocks on their own, right? They just kind of naturally form. And that's usually what happens is like, I'll let some grow out for a while. This is probably, I don't know, maybe a year's worth of growth. And then I'll keep it this way for a while, and then I'll just get busy, and then it'll turn into like these little, like this is last year's crop, like little babies pop up on their own, you know? And sometimes I braid it, sometimes it's up, sometimes it just turns into dreadlocks. Okay, all righty, we are good to go. Oh, she smells so good. I really like Moonlight White. Anybody who's getting into like Camellia sinensis as a tea and like, you know, like green tea type stuff, and you want to stop drinking the garbage out of the bags, you know, the tea bags, I would suggest starting with Moonlight White. She's a really nice one. A really nice one. Okay. I know what she's going to taste like, but let's see what she tastes like. Oh, she's so nice. I really love Moonlight White. She's like subtle. She wants to be a green tea, but isn't quite there, and has like a lot of like the savory, but also like floral and super like smooth mouthfeel of like a white tea. Okay, so for those of you who have been here before, you know the drill, but those of you who are new, say question, and then I'll answer your question, but say question, then type your question, and then it helps my brain scan through a little bit better. Okay, so I also feel bad because I don't know if I have it on top chat on my YouTube. I have to figure out those settings because I might just be seeing like top chat instead of all chat. Okay, so question, what's a good herb for weight loss? Now, you know, you guys have probably heard me talk a lot about like the difference between like supporting your metabolic function. Somebody the other day, and I'm going to get to this question, I swear to God. Somebody the other day was like, you must get really burnt out because you answer the same questions like every Friday 100 miles an hour 100 times a week. And I'm like, I really do. And I hadn't thought about it until she brought it up, and I'm like, son of a bitch. And now it's in my mind. So I thought I'm going to do something a little bit different. And just kind of, but I needed a platform that allowed me to control the stream of comments, if that makes sense. So question for what's a good herb for weight loss? I could talk about like understanding your metabolic health and understanding like the myth of calorie in, calorie out. But how about we talk about the AMPK pathway, which is like a thing in your genetics, in your genes, that says, I want you to imagine a train going down a track, and there's a lever that somebody could pull to make the train go to the right or to the left. This is your AMPK pathway. And basically this pathway says if you pull a train this way, you start using glucose for energy. And if you pull a train that way, you start using fat for energy, right? But here's the problem. Your body always naturally relies on glucose because every cell in your body requires glucose to function. Say it with me. And if you don't eat carbohydrates, it starts robbing cortisol from your muscles, right? That's basic biology. Nobody's body is different. But if you have, let's say, a little bit of insulin resistance, but your body's desperately trying to go down that pathway and it can't, you start accumulating the glucose into fat. Right. And so it's not really about starving yourself. It's about getting your body to turn on like the fat burning process. Right. And you can do that with 3 herbs. You can specifically turn on and upregulate your AMPK pathway by working with self-heal, cordyceps mushroom, or Panax ginseng. Those are the only 3 herbs that have been shown to upregulate your your fat metabolism, right? And so you still need to work on things like increasing your insulin, use, and not being, insulin resistant and things like that. But that doesn't do you any good if you haven't turned on your body's ability to use fat as energy, because no matter what, it'll just keep storing the fat and the glucose that you eat as fat, right? And I've been really deep diving into this after learning about my primary carnitine deficiency, which is a mutation that makes me lose carnitine. Carnitine is really important for fat metabolism. And so I was like, oh, wow, like really looking into like the herbs that like actually support that pathway. So I can like help my body do something that it's like genetically broken to do, which is use fat for energy, So fasting literally kills me, like literally would kill me. It's like a thing that I'm not allowed to do. But anyhow, yeah, those are the 3 herbs that I would check out. Okay, yeah, I like this because I can kind of just scroll through and look at questions as they come in, and forgive me, but I might skip ones that I've answered a million times, and I can find ones that are interesting to my brain. Okay, let's see. A Usnea glycerin extract. I would not do that. I don't like glycerin at all. Glycerin, by the way, just to put this out there, people are like, oh, I make alcohol-free tinctures of glycerin. I'm like, no, you don't. Glycerin is just a fatty-based sugar alcohol. Like, it is not actually alcohol-free. It's just a different type of alcohol. And the reason that you can't get drunk off of it is because your liver can't process it. And because your liver...
That was the end part of a different question. The lady wanted to know if she could make a salve with Usnea tincture to give her cat with you. Or
okay.
No, you'll have to go
okay.
above it.
Well, let me see. Let me answer that. Well, okay, so first of all, I just wanted, let me find it. Oh, can I give my son's cat a UTI with Usnea tincture? I wouldn't. Let me answer where I was going there. So basically, I heard my husband running. I'm like, something's wrong. He's like, you got the question wrong. Okay, so cats don't do well with many herbs because they can't process phenols through their liver, which is why people who use essential oils around their cats are killing them. Or if you use pine litter, it's killing them. They can't process it right. And so the same thing would be for Usnea. The acids in it would probably destroy the liver. You probably could get away with using corn silk for a cat's UTI. But back to like an Usnea glycerin extract, that would be even harder on the kitties because their liver can't process it. You know how sometimes when people eat like sugar alcohol and then they shit their brains out, like the gummy bears you can give to people if you don't like them? Right? Essentially what happens is it's the same way. So like your body can't process the glycerin. So it would be the same thing with the cats. The only time I use glycerin is if I have to, like if I'm making like a CBD tincture and or like a lilac tincture, because you need the fat soluble properties, but you can't put like oil in there because it won't mix. It won't mix with water. So that's the only time that I use those. Okay, let me go down here. I wonder, so here's a question. My brain was like, maybe. Question, any advice for seborrheic, I always say it wrong, dermatitis? Can't use shampoo, conditioner, EO-free without it coming back worse. AC rinses leave my hair too brittle. Gotten a bit better with dietary changes though. Well, I think you're on the right path. Sometimes I really feel like it's a yeast overgrowth, but not candida. People get fucking hyper focused on candida, and we're naturally supposed to have candida in our body, just not like huge amounts of it. It's like what helps eat you when you die. So it's supposed to be there, just not overgrown. But when it comes to the hair, I would probably consider working with like a dry shampoo. Definitely nothing that has, essential oils in it. You already say that you're EO free. And see if your scalp can regulate itself back. And then you might even, I know this sounds crazy, but you might even start working with like an emu oil pack like once a week or once every 2 weeks. And I know people freak out about putting oil on this type of stuff. But the thing is, your body is freaking out for oils that it's overproducing it, right? And so sometimes if you give it what it wants, it calms down. So, and working on your diet's a good call, because I really believe that most skin issues, wherever they originate on your body, are typically a sign of your gut being unhealthy or your liver being unhealthy, right? And they're interconnected. Your liver and your gut are one and the same in so many ways that people don't realize. We often think of our body as like a car, like it has all these individual parts that we think of separately, but they're all interconnected. And so if you haven't started working with like homemade milk kefir or water kefir, that'd probably be a good thing. But also, I came across some information the other day where like a riboflavin deficiency is really suspect for a lot of skin issues. And that makes sense because without riboflavin, your liver is really unhappy, right? And it's actually very important for methylation. And I honestly, at this point in my life, believe that an MTHFR mutation is actually just a symptom of a riboflavin deficiency, which is vitamin B2. Okay, let's see. Here's an interesting question from Stephen White. He says, question, what can you do to get rid of weird sensations in your back that feel like restless leg syndrome, but it's in your back and shoulders other than heat? Well, I'm curious about what's making your nerves misfire. Right, like you've probably got some sort of deficiency going on. I'm usually pretty suspect of like a B1 or a B12 deficiency or a magnesium deficiency when it comes to anything muscle twitching. Like, you know, if your eyes twitching sometimes, or like you kind of like have like an energy surge a whole lot, or if you have restless leg syndrome, or you're feeling anything weird going on with your back muscles. Of course, it could be a pinched nerve as well. So, you know, you might look into back type exercises, like, but even like nerve flossing exercises, anything like that. There could be something going on with your muscles, but that are like strained. But I usually, like, most of the time people are like, oh, I don't know how to stop this twitching. And I'm like, you're probably really low in magnesium. And if it's not magnesium, it's usually B1 or B12 because they're so interconnected. Okay, so let's see. Question. My boyfriend is trying to quit vaping. He hated the nicotine gum. What could he use to help him quit instead? Well, you know, it's more about like the addiction and like breaking the addiction first and then the habit. So even though he was getting nicotine from the gum, it didn't make him happy because it didn't break the habit, right? Like, so it's so interconnected. The first thing I would do for anybody who's trying to quit smoking tobacco of any kind or using tobacco of any kind is start eating sunflower seeds, and I would just get them deshelled because you need to eat at least like a cup or so a day. The thing is, it has similar like phenol compounds in it that hit the nicotine receptors in your brain, because we actually have nicotine receptors in our brain. And when you are eating these, it will help reduce your cravings for nicotine as you're cutting down, because it's tricking your brain into thinking that you are getting nicotine. It's the same way that people coming off of opioids can use California poppy, because it hits the same receptors in the brain, but there's no opioids in it, right? And so it's just kind of like tricking our systems, right? But from there, I would switch. I know this is bad, but like I would switch over to like the nicotine-free vape pens, even if you're like swapping out, because that's his habit, right? So first you have to get him over the physical addiction, right? And then from there you can step down on replacing the habit. Like people who try to break the addiction and the habit at the same time, when it comes to tobacco, because it's such like a social and a physical like direct mode network thing, you almost never succeed, because it's like you're up against two different things at once. So I always say break the addiction first and then break the habit. And I want to say I've seen them where like you can get vapes of like different degrees of like nicotine in them, so you can like step down. Okay, question. What helps with heart skipping a beat and a regular pulse? There's, you know, a lot of things to consider there, and there are herbs you can use, but I wouldn't want you to use it like a band-aid, right? Like you probably have some sort of electrolyte balance. Either you're not eating enough sodium, or you're eating too much sodium without magnesium and potassium, right? Like, have you had like your electrolyte levels checked? Has anybody checked your magnesium or potassium levels? That's super important. You know, and I don't suggest supplementing with the potassium supplement unless you know what you're doing. Because here's the thing, too much potassium can also kill you dead the way that not enough can. And so, I mean, you know, eating bananas and beans and avocados and things like that are fine for your sources of potassium, or, you know, like some sort of electrolyte blend. But I bring that up because sometimes when people have kidney issues, they build up too much potassium in their body and they start having heart symptoms. So if you don't have any kidney issues, it's more likely that you don't have enough electrolytes in your body. But if you have kidney issues, you might have too much of a buildup of a good thing in your body. And then once you kind of rule out that potential root cause, you could start working with something like hawthorn berries. They're basically a natural MAOI inhibitor, which is like stops your heart from jumping around. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. I've answered this one before, but fuck it, let's have a fight. What do you feel about everyone just worming themselves without being tested for parasites? I think that it's really, really easy to make women feel like their bodies are dirty. And I think that everybody falls for the detox trend. It's nothing new. But women are the drivers of the parasite cleansing. Some men do it too, obviously, but women are the main source because it's easy to make us feel like our body is filthy, right? I'm not saying that we can never have worms. I'm saying that like most people, they fall for the fear. They buy a detox that makes them shit their ever loving brains out, and then their mucosal lining in their intestines comes out, and they're like, oh, it's worms because it looks long and stringy. And then they've just entered a cycle of being sick for the rest of their life. You know, it can take up to 5 years to rebuild that mucosal lining in your intestines, and now you've just given yourself leaky gut. Right, that barrier is there so your body can absorb like the food and things that you're digesting and the nutrients and all that, and protect you from viruses and bacteria and things like that. And when you strip it out, guess what, everything starts seeping out, and then you're going to start having all these symptoms that the detox gurus are going to tell you are die-off symptoms, and you need to just keep doing it. And it's a really sad situation. Now, again, I do believe that we can get parasites, but parasites are very real, and there's very real symptoms to it. People often blame like their shitty food choices or their sedentary life or like all of the meds they're taking and all these symptoms they're having on parasites. And then they hyper focus on it, which is a shame because while you may or may not actually have a parasite, you're probably missing out a bunch of other clues your body's trying to give you because you're so hell-bent on believing it's a parasite. And then confirmation bias kicks in, and then everything you see is a parasite, right? Like, guess I should have muted that. Um, but yeah, I think that people also try to tell people that, oh, testing doesn't show for parasites, but like the one thing that labs do is like they test for like DNA level of parasites now. But really just like look at yourself honestly and say, and then I'll move on, look at yourself honestly and say, have I been to a country where there's heavy parasites? Am I eating a lot of like really unwashed, dirty foods from like an area that I know that there's parasites that are heavy? You know, some people can and can't eat garden food fresh, depending on where you live. Like, you know, did I, like, you have to actually sit there and think with your analytical mind, where would you have actually been exposed to this parasite? Right? And then you better figure out what parasite you actually have. Because if you start trying to just swing in the dark, you can actually hurt yourself. Like if you have a parasite and you don't know its life cycle, what kills it, what part of your intestines it lives in, how often eggs hatch, any of this stuff, if it can migrate out of your intestines, and you just start throwing stuff at it, one, it probably won't kill it. Worse, it could drive it out of your intestines into somewhere more dangerous, like your liver or your heart or your lungs or your brain. So you kind of like need to know what you're doing, you know. So that's a thing that people scream at me about. Devin, let me jump way down here. Let's see. Question. Are you still doing videos on making lotions? I need to know more about mixing the oils. So I've never actually done a cream video. They're a little bit more complex. I need to eventually, but it's really, really easy to like hurt yourself or people if you're like not doing it correctly, right? And sometimes you could be doing it correctly, but the settings that you're doing it in might not be correct, and your preservative can't keep up with the contamination. So I'm always kind of a little hesitant. I'm always a little kind of hesitant to teach people how to make creams, just because like I think that everybody's smart enough to do it, but I just, you know, there's so much misinformation out there about preservatives, and the infections can be really serious if you don't get it right. Okay, so let's see. Let me roll down here. Question. For improved liver function, milk thistle, capsules, tincture, any better herbs? I mean, milk thistle is like a battering ram when it comes to improving your liver function. Personally, I like working with something like roasted dandelion root a little bit better. I think that she's a lot gentler. And if you really are dealing with like a fatty liver, or you're really needing to give your liver function, I would work with tudka, which is actually like a bile acid. And that's been studied for a long time to support liver. Now you can use milk thistle, but just go really slow, because people will take like a capsule or a tincture or tea, whatever form you want to work with is fine, and it'll be brutal. You won't feel good, because there are ramifications to suddenly slamming your liver into like high drive, right? And you better have your bile regulation up and going before you do that. So that's why I just like roasted dandelion root, because it gently supports not only your liver but your gallbladder and your bile functions and everything else. And I think that's just a more balanced approach personally. Okay, so that's a cool question. Can you tincture a different herb in a previously made tincture if you want to preserve the alcohol and combine the herbs? You sure can. Now, I am a purist. I like to keep my tinctures separate and then just join them up in a cup if I need to use them together, because there might be a point in time, now hear me out here, there might be a point in time where the herb that you are wanting to use, you want to use it individually. Once you put them together, you always have to use it in that combo. So you could do a good compromise where you're like, hey, I made a quart jar, but I want to also combine. So you could take half of that tincture and leave it in its one herb state, and then tincture it with the other herb. But yeah, you can. And you can even do that with the same herb again and make like a double like potent extract that way. Okay, so dandelion olive leaf extract for happy liver. Yeah, dandelion is really fantastic, like I talked about. And olive leaf extract is another good option for. But I would get try to find with the OLE. I would make sure that you get a full spectrum one, not just the isolated phenols, because nothing in nature exists singularly. Okay. I already saw that. Oh, it jumped me way down here. Let's go way down to the bottom here. I'm just scrolling through questions here. Oh, that's a hard one. I'm just going to talk about it because I can't really answer, but question, are there certain herbs a kidney transplant recipient should stay away from? Well, I assume you're on rapamycin. You are on something repressing your immune system so your body doesn't reject the kidney, which, by the way, rapa in tiny amounts, like, it's really cool stuff. They've shown that it like actually extends like lifespans of dogs and humans and things like that. And it came from a bacteria from the Rapa Nui Islands. It's pretty cool stuff. But you're using it in huge amounts to repress your immune system probably, or something similar, which means that you can't use any herb in regards that will stimulate your immune system. And that's pretty rough because a lot of herbs stimulate the immune system, right? And then, I mean, that would be like your main concern, and we'll isolate and push back like probably 70% of herbs that you could use. And then depending on why you got the kidney transplant, if you had like CKD or something like that going on, and what your kidney numbers are, like it's really like what your bun ratio is doing and all that stuff. It's really hard to say if you could safely use many herbs at all. What I will say is I would stick to, I mean, of course, research, talk to your doctor, all that type of stuff. I would probably stick to food-based herbs in moderate to small amounts. And you're like, well, that's not, what's a food-based herb? Well, you're looking at like, rosemary, parsley, cilantro, garden sage, you're looking at ginger, certain berries, things like that you can probably eat. I know you probably have to stay away from mushrooms. My dad lost a kidney to cancer. He's only got the one kidney. And he can't eat a whole lot of mushrooms because of the purines. But yeah, and it does make it kind of hard. So you just kind of like look at it from the medicine you're on standpoint, but then also like, are you allowed to increase your kidney function? Are you allowed to stimulate anything like that? And that will kind of give you like a hard no list of when you look at what an herb does for your body. And that was a question from Facebook. Oh my goodness, I'm going to save some lives. Your thoughts on wormwood tea for parasite cleansing. So there's this compound in wormwood called theogene, and it's going to make you fucking kill people. So you ever hear about like when people were drinking absinthe and like they would go insane and like stab people to death, kill their families, all that type of stuff? Well, that's because there's a compound in it called theogene. Theogene is present in a lot of herbs, including yarrow, but wormwood is why they used it to make absinthe, is like the highest level of theogene. And the thing is, it doesn't take much. And so like if a tincture is around and I needed to use it, at best I would use 1 drop of wormwood tincture in my water, so a tea is just doubling down on it, and it's pretty aggressive, and a lot of people are using wormwood now. And here's the catch: let's say a cup of tea is fine for this person, but you have underlying psychosis or genetics for schizophrenia or bipolar or manic or anything like that, and you drink a tea and it might spin you out the same way that poke root can, and it could make you go like psychotic. And the crazy thing about theogene is that it always makes violent psychosis. Like you don't just kind of go weird and drift around, you want to hurt other people. So no, I would not drink wormwood tea for a parasite cleanse or just in general. Okay, yeah, that's a cool question. Can ginkgo biloba make you a little aggressive in your vibe? Taking it for the first time and seems to make me a little agitated. Let's unpack this. Okay, so the way that ginkgo works is that it stimulates your dopamine, right? And if your GABA was already low, which is something that it oppresses, it can like make you fucking rage a bit, right? Especially if you're already taking anything that's like, or if you're not taking anything that is increasing your GABA. That's why, and I'll shamefully say it, like one of my herbal synergism capsules, is California poppy ginkgo, because I know that the California poppy is going to increase GABA levels, and I know that the ginkgo is going to increase dopamine. But if you increase one without like balancing the other, it can repress the other one. So, I mean, it's a pretty good sign as to like you probably have low GABA levels, right? And so it makes you agitated. But I mean, it seems, I know you're sad about it, like about it making you feel that way, but actually, I kind of get excited when an herb fucks me up. Because hear me out. If you start to learn at a core base of how these plants are impacting you on a biological level, you will be able to get a literal clue as to what is happening in your body. And in this case, if ginkgo is making you angry, it's probably because your GABA levels are too low, and so it repressed them even further. And you get really grumpy when your body doesn't, your brain doesn't get the GABA acid that it wants. Okay. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Oh, cool. But I just learned that I can pin a comment. Okay. So let's see. That is a really cool thing, and I have heard of it. I think I've seen it here a little bit. Question: have you ever seen the Friends of Big Bear Bald Eagle live camera? The eaglets are about to fledge any day now. I think I've seen it forever ago. That is really cool to be able to watch. I like watching bird videos where people also like where they set it up in like the bird box, right? So you can see them build their nest, have the eggs, and like go through the whole process. Those ones are cool. Okay. So I have got to admit, I am about 90% less stressed out than I normally am, just letting myself go slow. I know it's 40 minutes, but I don't feel like my body isn't like dying from the pace of my brain. So I think this is probably the answer to me not avoiding lives and feeling like they burn me out. This is a cool comment. I want to thank you for turning me on to milk and water kefir. I had horrible gut problems with tons of pain. I got addicted to pot because of my gut problems. My pain is now gone. Thank you. Yeah, man, I know people hear me like I'm a broken record when I'm like milk kefir, water kefir, milk kefir, water kefir, but so much stuff in your body falls in line when your gut health is in line. right? And it totally improves quality of your life. And sometimes it can be brutal when you first start it because it can cause die off and things like that. But go slow and steady, and eventually you'll rebuild that gut bacteria and end up pain free or not having, brain fog, digestive issues, hormone issues, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so let me roll on down here. Question. Should corn silk tincture be taken every day for kidney support? Yeah, you can. She's pretty benign, but I think I would, if I was doing it every day, I like the full spectrum aspects of corn silk tea over just a tincture, right? Like I like a tincture too, and I have it, but like you could add the tincture to your tea. You don't have to do the corn silk tea every day, but maybe alternate it, because while we are using the 100 proof vodka, so it's 50% water, 50% alcohol, so we have the water and soluble properties. A lot of corn silk's soothing properties are in the water soluble properties. So if you are making a tea, you're going to get more of those properties, right? But also, like if I had like inconsistency issues, like if I, pissed myself all the time, or kids wetting the bed, anything like that, I do like a tincture a little bit better than that, than I like the tea for that. But you could alternate them. Not that you said European to bed. It's just that my brain was like, that is what that is. Okay, so let's see. All right, here we go. Here's a good question. If I switch from table salt to Celtic sea salt, would I have to supplement the iodine with seaweed? It would be a good idea. I think that, listen, first of all, the table salt is horrible for you, but they don't even put enough iodine in it that it really prevents goiters in the way that they think it does, right? What's really happening is all of our soil is deficient now. So unless you're eating seafood on a consistent basis, odds are good that you are deficient in iodine. And then a lot of the dough conditioners and additives that they add to like breads and juices and things like that are banned in other countries compete for the iodine space in your thyroid. So I think that seaweed is a good idea for your diet, even if you are eating table salt, right? But yeah, it is something to consider, especially if you're not eating a lot of seafood. But I do think that when people switch over to like Celtic or Himalayan salt, that it makes the iodine issue even worse. And then here's a really interesting take. Listen, if you're like me and you eat a lot of your whole diet is whole foods and you're not eating anything processed or anything like that, you have to realize that a lot of our soil is dead now, especially in the US. And so by proxy, even if you're eating like organic foods and high quality this and high quality that, it doesn't really matter, because the organic has not been shown to have more nutrients than non-organic, right? Because it's about the soil, not about what they may or may not be spraying on it, right? And so you actually are more likely in some ways to end up with nutrient deficiencies. Although I will say, just because you're eating synthetically added nutrients, if you eat processed food, doesn't mean that you're not nutrient deficient. It usually just means like on a lab you'll look fine, even if you feel like shit, because your body probably can't use the synthetic version of the vitamin that they're adding into it, like folic acid type stuff, Okay, so way down here, here's a question. I've been using a dehumidifier to dry herbs indoors. Room is 40%, humidity 70, 79%. It's working fine. Doesn't pull too much water. Herbs take a few days to fully dry. Chamomile takes longer. Is that normal? Yeah. You will find, and for those of you who are curious, you can go check out my herb processing playlist. There's not very many on there, but on that playlist, I show you how to make a curing cabinet, which is basically where you use like, a closet or one of those little, you can put up like one of those like Walmart closets, right? Or like a cupboard or somewhere. And then you put a little dehumidifier in there, and then you cure your herbs by pulling the liquid out of them versus using heat or waiting on evaporation. And then they're far more quality, and it can take time. It can take a lot longer depending on the herb itself. And it can depend on like the moisture content they had going in there. It could depend on where they're at in your setting. It can depend on if they have thicker stems, and it just takes time. And chamomile will take a little extra time because she's kind of got that little dense apple blossom, right, where she's holding on to a lot of moisture there. Anybody who's trying to dry something like mullein or comfrey or anything like that, I highly recommend splitting the stem open right down the center of anything like that that's big. It would be hard to do it on a chamomile because it's really coming from her bloom. But for big stems, you want to split them open, and then you could even put them closer to the dehumidifier and versus far away. Right? Think about where it's going to be pulling the liquid from. And by the way, that is how they cure marijuana. For people who are like, how do I do that? Well, the industry's been doing it for a long time. Question. So even geranium on a cat's fur against fleas and ticks isn't great. I feel like I've tried everything by now. Yeah, anything like that, anything essential oil related is really, 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 really bad for your cats. And you want to know the truth? For my cats and my dogs, I get prescription flea and tick medication. I don't like using the stuff that's over the counter because it gives such bad reactions. But you can get a prescription that's safer, and it is still a chemical, but it works. It works, and I don't apply it the way they tell you to. They tell you to apply it like once every month. I do about once every 2 months throughout the summer, and then I don't worry about it in the wintertime because where we live, it's cold, and I can't allow fleas in my house. When I was a kid, unfortunately, fleas didn't get taken care of in my home, and I was literally like covered head to toe in bites for most of my childhood, and I developed a really bad allergy to them. So if I get bit by a flea, it fucks me up. But I would use that over essential oils on my animals any day, especially on cats. But it's just worth it. You know, we had a bad tick season this year. Okay. Question. Do you use a dehydrator with any of your herbs? I got a dehydrator for my kids and doing basil today. Typically with herbs, the only time I'll use a dehydrator is with like berries or something that maybe roots. Anything that is like a little too wet or a little too dense to rely on the dehumidifier. Okay, I have not heard of that, but I think people have asked me about it before. But somebody said, have you heard of putting an avocado pit and rubbing alcohol for 24 to 48 hours as a painkiller? They're trying to pull out some sort of compound that's probably in the avocado pit, but I would be really curious about what the compound is and if it's safe to enter your bloodstream, because while it's not quite DMSO, rubbing alcohol can get past quite a few barriers on your skin that normal alcohol can't, and it could put that into your bloodstream, and if it's hard on your liver or your kidneys, so it's not about not using it. And I don't know, I'm just saying, like, you should research what is it that they're trying to extract out, like what is the exact compound that they are after. Okay, let's see. All right, here's a question. Question. Herbs for general fatigue. Would that just be working on adrenals over time? Yeah, it really, it's such a common issue. Everyone's tired. We're all tired from the stress that we're dealing with right now in life, and that was a fucking nervous laugh because I'm there with you. It really depends on what's causing the fatigue. You could use something like American ginseng, which isn't stimulating like the Panax variety, not as stimulating, and that would be really great for like supporting your adrenal function. But it could also end up being a band-aid if, let's say, you're just really nutrient deficiency. Like, right. So like a lot of people hear, I'm an herbalist, but you hear me talk about like nutrients a lot more probably these days, because it's like you can push your body to feel less tired. But what if you feel tired because you have no B12, or, you have no this, or you have no that? And so consider getting like a full vitamin panel if you can, and just kind of like getting a more complex look at what's going on. Make sure that you get your thyroid tested as well. And then you could do an adrenal test too if your doctor likes to listen to you. If you're willing to sway them in any way into getting what tests you want, or if you have the money, you could order these tests yourself from walk-in labs if you're in the US. Most states allow it. There are a few weird ones like New York and a few other that I don't think allow you to use walk-in labs, but I'm not entirely sure on that list. But I really like Shilajit, but in super tiny amounts. People really overdo it with Shilajit. She's full of fulvic acid, and I bring her up because she is really good for like stimulating energy, but actually what she legit really does is helps your body utilize the minerals you're taking in. So like if you were just taking magnesium, that's really cool, but if you take, like, let's say she legit alongside of your magnesium, the absorption rate in your gut goes up, because that's what role fulvic acid plays in our body, and that is what is in she legit primarily is fulvic acid. Okay, so somebody said started curing herbs and the difference in quality is amazing. Thank you for the tip. It really is. It really is. So for a very long time, and it feels like a different lifetime now because it's been like 15 years, I was aggressively involved in the marijuana industry, even though I don't smoke weed anymore. And like I grew a lot, cured a lot, and did all that type of stuff. And it's like the difference between good weed and bad weed is knowing how to cure it. You can grow like fantastic weed or herbs in general, but if you don't know how to cure it, it ends up being crap, you know. And the difference is when it comes to from an herbal standpoint, the big difference is what's being preserved. My brain read a different question. I'm like, wait, you have to answer this one before you jump into that one. And so, you know, it's really all about like you're not killing off as many of the minerals, you're not killing off as many of the compounds, you're not killing off as much as that stuff. So it really does make a big difference. And so I think this is going to be the last question right here, and then I'm going to jump off because I looked up and I realized it's been an hour. Okay. Question. My child says sometimes things move really fast in his head. I used to experience the same thing when I was a child. Thoughts on this? Well, it's likely some sort of neurodiversity, but you can start talking with them and asking if it upsets them or like how many thoughts are they having at once. It depends on, have you ever had their IQ tested? Maybe he's doing meta thinking or, you know, matrix thinking. Those are two different things, but sometimes it goes really fast in my head too. And I always, and this is super random, but like anybody who has a kid, especially like if your kid seems like really smart and really picks up on things, they're telling you that their head moves fast, I would consider getting their IQ evaluated before anything else. Because did you know that people who have a high IQ have like drastic odds of being misdiagnosed with things? You know, like God forbid, like your kid's just really smart, but they're like, oh, he can't sit down and pay attention. He's got ADHD. Take this prescription methamphetamine, you know, like, and so it's just something to consider, you know, like, you know, talking to them about how it makes them feel and like what the thoughts are like and if it comes and goes, or, you know, if your OEs get excited. But just so you know, because my brain moves really fast, that's how I'm able to do these Q&As. And this is a pretty calm one. I can get really going and answer hundreds of just you know, but it's not good on my body. So that is just something that I would explore. So thank you so much for being here with me, folks, and joining me through this Q&A. For all the people on Facebook watching, I don't even know how many people are there, but this was a new time for me, going live on Facebook and YouTube at the same time, and it worked really well. I am so grateful that you guys are here with me, and I'm going to hide that, and I'm learning this program. If you would like to support my capacity to be a real human, to dump my brain out, to answer questions, to upload videos when I'm able to, when things aren't as chaotic and all that type of stuff, consider becoming a member. You can join for literally 99 cents a month. It's just a way to support, you know, me as a human, roof over my head, tea in my pot. You do get early access to videos as I'm able to upload them, and you do get a Sundays only member Q&A on YouTube. I don't think I can do that on Facebook yet over this platform, but and so on Sunday I'll be back talking with just members. I'm more likely to answer your question because there's not as many rolling by and that type of stuff. If you can't afford to join, because I know things are hard and sometimes a dollar makes all the difference, that's okay. Just make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, share, turn on notifications, all that type of stuff goes a long way. And don't worry, because I have this Friday Q&A every Friday, assuming my life allows for it. Most Fridays it does. And so you still have access to Q&As, and any videos that I upload, I eventually release them. So it's not a paywall, it's just a little bitty baby time wall. So thank you so much for being here with me, folks, and I'll see you next time. Bye.